Chatapalooza. My name is Ethan Weinberg, and I'm an intern in the office, and we're going to be starting our LGBTQ chat. Just to give you a little background about myself, I'm a senior. I'm a major in government and a minor in environmental studies. And we have Kurt with us today. Kurt, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Like Ethan said, my name's Kurt. I am a senior as well, and I'm a double major in anthropology and religion. I'm also the chair of the Outreach Peer Mentors program for LGBT students here at Dartmouth.
Sure, wonderful. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that program?
Yeah, sure. So Outreach is it's a peer-to-peer mentoring program where we train sophomores, juniors, and seniors to be mentors for basically students of all class. We draw largely from freshmen, but really we have mentees from every single class represented amongst the undergraduates. So essentially the program will train the mentors, and they're matched with mentees based on geographical location, interests, concerns, goals, whatnot, and from there, they're expected to meet once a week just to provide kind of a venue for the mentee to discuss LGBT issues that they might not feel comfortable talking about with other people. And in general, it just helps a lot of people with the coming out process, integrating to life at Dartmouth and any other issues that they may be concerned about.
Sounds like a really great program. Among a lot of the other programs at Dartmouth, there are lots of peer mentoring programs. Outreach is one specifically targeted for LGBT students, and there are also lots of other resources that are run through College Student Center, through OPAL, which is kind of our office on diversity and pluralism. And we also have GSX, which is Gender, Sexuality, XYZ, which is a program that kind of brings students of LGBTQ identifying students together to come together in a forum to talk about specific things at Dartmouth and different topics. And we also have Pride Week, which is a big, obviously, celebration of LGBT life at Dartmouth. That's going to be coming up later this month. And do you know anything about that? You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so Pride Week, I don't know how long it's been going on for, but it's been growing continually each year. This year's actually looking pretty good. It's, I think, the third week of April. And in general, it just consists of all these different events associated with LGBT identity. There's speakers, there's cookouts, t-shirts, talks. Just in general, the week is chock full of different types of programs, which is really quite exciting to see it grow. It integrates a little bit with the graduate schools, which is nice to kind of get that dialogue between the two student bodies. So.
Yeah. And outside of programming at Dartmouth, I think it would be good for us to talk a little bit about our personal experiences being gay at Dartmouth and kind of what that's been like. So for me personally, I came to Dartmouth not completely knowing whether or not I was going to be out right away, but I think what was really completely overwhelming was that there was this sense of community and comfort, and I didn't have to really worry. And I think more and more I've seen as people come out and come to terms with their sexuality or their gender and how they want to incorporate that into their life at Dartmouth, there's an overwhelming amount of welcoming from everyone that they know, be it allies or other people within the LGBT community who really want people to be as comfortable as possible, and it's really just seen as another part of your identity at Dartmouth among all of the things that each individual is. And I think it's really, really nice that when you're affiliated as an LGBT student at Dartmouth, you're not really branded by that, while there are also obviously many programs and organizations that you can be part of.
Yeah, my kind of experience is a little bit different. I didn't come out to the end of my sophomore year here at Dartmouth, which meant the first 2 years meant a lot of navigating, trying to figure out who I was. But I was actually, and another important point, I was also on the varsity track and field team, so a lot of people have questions pertaining to LGBT identity and athletics. And it actually, like Ethan said, the Dartmouth community is very supportive. I mean, it's very accepting on all levels, which honestly, it couldn't have been a better place to figure that out. So in the last 2 years, it's switching over to Outreach to try and make that process easier has been really quite good.
Great. Okay, so we have a question from KG 2016. Last year, a friend told me that their floor was vandalized with anti-gay slurs. Could you talk about your experiences with homophobia at Dartmouth? I think that was a really shocking event last year. I remember, I don't personally live on that floor, but that is the gender neutral floor where a lot of people affiliated with the LGBT community will live. And I think that it was a bit frustrating to know that I had such a strong experience and not really had any experiences with homophobia beforehand. And while I personally don't live on that floor, I think that everyone within the LGBT community kind of felt a little unsettled after that event. I mean, how did you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, the response was good. There was a whole kind of organization on the students level where students mobilized. People all across campus wore white, and there was a vigil on the green. But I think it highlights an important issue that you're going to encounter across the world. Dartmouth is not an isolated bubble. I mean, homophobia is going to permeate in different levels. Whether or not you encounter it on a day-to-day basis, and like Ethan said, I haven't like personally experienced, but that doesn't mean it's not present. One thing that's actually good to highlight, next week there's actually an event at the Hopkins Center, which is our performing arts center, called Talk It Out, where it's essentially a panel where 4 different students are going to speak about their experiences with homophobia at Dartmouth. And in general, I mean, that event itself has been a response to that particular incident. So while it's present, I mean, the students are very aware of it and are actively pushing to try and make sure that that is not something that is prevalent in the sense that it is in other places.
Yeah, and I think it's important to recognize that obviously it's disappointing that this happens at Dartmouth, but unfortunately it happens everywhere. And kind of as Kurt was saying, we're not really, the homophobia kind of permeates across the Dartmouth community, and we're not really isolated in the sense that this is like a perfect world, and we completely understand that. And what's great is that these kinds of events produce a lot of really, really great dialogue and response, and really work together to make the community better for everyone who's a part of it. And it's really nice to see the community growing. And in terms of just general LGBT friendliness, I think we were ranked in the top.
This is given a 5-star rating.
We were given a 5-star rating for the welcome to LGBT students on campus a couple of years ago, which is really, really nice to see. And that while there obviously are isolated incidents, that overwhelmingly this is a place where students who identify with the LGBT community are safe and comfortable and can have a really great 4 years. Yeah,
and I see we have another question from KG 2016 about how did the administration respond to the incident from Fahey McLean. Dean Johnson sent out a pretty strongly worded blitz condemning the actions, and likewise we mentioned the vigil earlier across campus, which was actually a really great show of solidarity from both the administration, the undergraduate population, and the community. I mean, there were a lot of people there, which is really quite moving to see as someone from the LGBT community.
Yeah, and just to clarify, Dean Johnson is our Dean of Students at the college. So there are lots of different deans. I'm not sure if you guys have done a lot of research into the support systems at Dartmouth, but every student has an individual dean. They have their academic advisors, and then we have the Dean of Students, who's kind of the top of that umbrella organization. So we have a question. What are the support resources for LGBTQ students? So we kind of mentioned a couple of those before, but we'll go into it a little more. So Kurt is one of the co-chairs of Outreach, which is an organization that's meant to support individuals at all stages in the coming out process, and kind of find a resource in a specific individual mentor who can be there to answer questions, can talk to them about any of the difficulty and stages in that process. There's also OPAL, which is the Office of Pluralism and Leadership, which is in College Student Center, that deals with diversity on a number of levels, but obviously the LGBT community is also one of their major focuses.
And to highlight with OPAL, they actually just hired a new director of OPAL. Her name's Allison, and I'm actually blanking on her last name right now, but I was part of the interview process when they were selecting her, and her background with LGBT communities from her previous work is actually really exciting. So it's unfortunate that I'm not going to be here long enough to see those changes implemented, but she's really a fantastic individual, and hopefully if you guys come here, you'll get to meet her. And it looks like we have another question from, is that Ozzy? How integral and outspoken are queer people of color?
Yeah, I think that across the LGBT community, you see participation from lots of different other communities. I think that it's clear that at Dartmouth, students identify with lots of different communities, ethnic, racial, sexual, in terms of their orientation and their gender, and I think that queer people of color are just as active in all of these kinds of organizations. And what's really great is when we can see how we can leverage a lot of the different organizations built around these communities to work together. So whether we do an event co-led by, for example, the Afro-American Society and GSX and Outreach, and it's really great because in lots of instances you'll see these communities come together and recognize that that no one identity really blankets and defines an individual.
Likewise, the LGBT intern from the OPAL office, again, that's the Office of Pluralism and Leadership, recently started a campus group for female queer students of color, and I know that meets every week. And likewise, I can also touch upon outreach. I mean, again, with our mentors, you look across the spectrum, I think we have about 30 to 40 mentors that are currently trained within the program, and it's people from all different backgrounds, all different communities across Dartmouth. And I think that's a really important point to highlight, is just diversity within the LGBT community, and that's certainly represented across the board, I think, across most organizations.
Definitely. So it looks like we're getting a question from DJC. How accepting is the fraternity system of gay individuals wanting to pledge? So I think that you'll see that it's a little bit different at each house, but I think for the most part, gay students and lesbian students are pretty much welcome at a variety of different houses. For example, I am affiliated, and I've not felt at any point in my experience that there was homophobia within my fraternity, and I think that a lot of that is a big shift in recent years as more people are coming to Dartmouth and identifying as LGBT and coming out earlier, which I think is a trend across the United States, that there's just a general shift in acceptance. And obviously not every fraternity is perfect, and there are some that are more welcoming than others. But for example, I feel that a lot of my friends who are affiliated and are gay haven't had much difficulty within their own societies.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I'm not personally affiliated, but I don't think it would have been an issue if I had wanted to be. Likewise, people fall into just different slots across the board, and I think, again, by and large, the campus is pretty accepting of LGBT students. See, there's one other question. Is there a fraternity that a lot of LGBT students join? Are they spread out through the Greek system? I mean, there's certainly houses in which more LGBT individuals are concentrated, but it's by no means exclusive to one house. It's you find LGBT students all across the board, and you could probably speak better to that.
It's really nice to see that people gravitate towards houses that they identify with, not necessarily because of their LGBT status, but because it's a group of people that they think that they can learn from and have fun with and be friends with and have lifelong relationships with. And it's nice to see that if you're LGBT, that doesn't necessarily define whether or not you could be a member of a certain house. So kind of as Kurt was saying, you can really be all over the place.
Yeah, and it's also important to mention that in addition to the fraternities and sororities, there's 3 co-ed houses on campus, the Tabard, Alpha, Theta, and Phi Tau, and a lot of LGBT students are drawn to those particular communities. There's also several non-Greek co-ed houses such as Amarna and Panarchy that are also very welcoming to LGBT students. So again, the options certainly aren't limited to one particular venue.
It's really great. I think that it would be a good moment to kind of talk about how you think the campus has changed. Obviously, we're both seniors, and I think that there's been a big shift over the time that we've been here with LGBT life.
Oh, completely. I mean, one of the things I can point to right away is when I was coming in here as a freshman, sophomore, outreach didn't exist. So the program that I currently chair started less than 2 years ago, and since that time, it's up over 60 students now between mentors and mentees, and that's just current members. That's not counting the number of students that have gone through the program. So when you're looking at that, that's something that's changed considerably. Likewise, there's also been funding allocated for an LGBT house physical plant on campus, which they're currently in the process of looking for. So that's something that's very exciting, that's in the works and should hopefully be implemented for the class of 2016 at some point.
And I think a little more generally, something that's really great is you'll see a lot of incoming students who are definitely way more confident, I think, than we were, or students of our age were when they were coming into Dartmouth, where they're already confident. And while we have a great outreach mentor program, a lot of them don't even need it, which is really nice to see that GSAs in high schools around the country have done a great job at giving students who identify with LGBT an opportunity to explore that sexuality and that gender and all of that stuff beforehand, and come to Dartmouth really comfortable with who they are, and I think that just makes your transition to college a whole lot easier. Oh,
completely. And I also think the Opal office does a great job in terms of facilitating that transition. Pam Meisner, who's the LGBT advisor, works in Opal. If you do happen to come to campus, I would take a moment to try and track her down. She's really a fantastic woman and has done some great things for Dartmouth since she's come here.
So it looks like we have a question about LGBT opportunities academically. So just to give you a sense of that, there are obviously, just as there are students who identify as LGBT, there are lots of professors who do as well. And it's really nice to see is that LGBT life is incorporated into a lot of these courses, whether it's history or government and things like that, but obviously more focused in the Women's and Gender Studies department. And there are lots of courses that will focus specifically on LGBT life. For example, last term I took a class on the plagues and politics of AIDS, which is a really great thing because it's something that I usually don't think about as deeply because it kind of predated our generation and my experience as a gay man. And just to have the opportunity to see that perspective and what people went through. And we have some excellent faculty who were so involved in a lot of the organizing and the writing and the political activism that was going on at the time. And it's great to hear that they can share their firsthand experiences at Dartmouth. Which is
yeah, and to highlight the faculty, Michael Bronsky is one of the leading LGBT scholars in the world. I mean, I feel like every day I log on to the Dartmouth homepage and he's won a new award. So that's one professor, I mean, just to throw out a name. And another thing worth also, again, touching upon is the fact that at Dartmouth there's a lot of leeway in terms of what you do within your courses. So say if you're taking a course on Latin American identity in Guatemala or whatnot, I mean, there's definitely there's a certain amount of give and take where you can definitely research LGBT-related topics if it interests you. I mean, there is that flexibility within just about every subject, especially within the liberal arts courses. And
you'll find that a lot of the classes are cross-listed in Women and Gender Studies and then something else like history or government or something like that. I took a Women in Latin American Politics class that was cross-listed during my sophomore year, and kind of as Kurt said, you have that flow in between the two academic areas, which really allows you to personalize it and personalize your academic experience. So we have a question: what is the LGBTQ hookup scene like at Dartmouth? I think that it's definitely different for every person. I would say that it's not necessarily underground or much different from the straight hookup scene at Dartmouth, in that obviously you have to navigate the first boundary of trying to figure out whether or not someone is gay or straight. But I think beyond that, it's pretty standard relative to the general experience at Dartmouth.
And this is a question I get a lot from mentees within outreach, trying to find a new aspect of their personal life. And I honestly think the best advice I always give them is to try and meet more LGBT individuals. And you do that by going to outreach events, by going to GSX events. And from there, I mean, because a lot of them struggle, again, with identifying who is LGBT. So just pushing for campus visibility in that sense has been something we've been trying to push for.
I also wanted to take a moment to talk about DGala, which is the Dartmouth Gay and Lesbian Alumni Association. So that's something that's a relatively new thing here at Dartmouth. I'm not sure how long it's been around.
Several years.
So it's just been a growing organization at Dartmouth, and obviously decades ago there were a lot fewer students who would come to Dartmouth and identify as LGBT, but since then a lot of them have come out, and it's really nice to see that just like other identifying organizations like BADA and Latino alumni, LGBT alumni have their own space at Dartmouth where they can communicate and network and have a lot of resources. And something that I know that Outreach has been doing is working with DGala to kind of connect students who are maybe going on an off term or graduating with members of DGala who are in various cities around the country or around the world and have a resource in a specific city as well. Yeah,
I mean, and there's been a couple DGala mixers on campus just to give undergraduates a chance to meet some LGBT alumni. And Ethan's right, Outreach has been coordinating with DGala to establish an undergraduate alumni mentoring program, which has actually been very successful. Usually it can pair you up based on just general professional interests, career interests, academic interests, and gives you a mentor outside of Dartmouth with which to work to kind of to move towards whatever it is you're aspiring to. Let's see. So are there any specific social events for gay men to meet up at Dartmouth? Yes, there are. Each term there's usually a general, like a social mixer that's organized by several people on campus that they'll blitz out to campus about. Again, the easiest way to find out about these social events is to get in touch with Pam Meisner, who's the LGBT advisor, and she's the one that kind of creates these email lists that go out to campus, so you'll be informed of anything that's going on in that regard. Likewise, Pride Week certainly has its full share of events in terms of social mixers. You could probably touch some more upon that.
Yeah. I'm actually not sure what the specific planning of this year is going to be.
Yeah.
But I think there's going to be a lot of stuff. Essentially, there are both informal and formal opportunities for people within the LGBT community to meet with each other, whether it's through a mixer or whether you're just casually at a party at night or at some time throughout the weekend. And I think that while there, as Kurt talked about before, there obviously is the initial obstacle of trying to figure out whether someone is gay or straight when you're interacting with them, that the social opportunities for LGBT individuals are just as plentiful as they are for straight individuals. So we have a question from Ozzy. I want to have conversations about racial sexuality conflicts at Dartmouth. Does Dartmouth have these conversations? And I overwhelmingly will say yes.
Yes.
These conversations happen all the time in a variety of different fora, whether it's an op-ed in the D, whether it's some kind of panel that students are going to be speaking about. There's an enormous amount of conversation about these kinds of issues. I think that Dartmouth students in general are pretty outspoken and passionate about what they believe in, and that manifests in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, no, definitely. It can be over conversations at dinner. It can be within the classroom, panels, whatnot, GSX meetings. I mean, you're definitely going to have your fair share to talk about issues of sexuality and race during your 4 years at Dartmouth. I also want to take a moment to mention the Dimensions Weekend. I know that there's several LGBT events related that are planned. I'll actually be at the activities fair, so if you guys are around, feel free to stop by the outreach table and you can learn more about the program. Likewise, we'll be having a social mixer where there'll be pizza of some kind for you to meet the rest of the members of outreach. And I know GSX is also having an event that Saturday, I believe. So definitely stop by those events, meet some of the other LGBT students at Dartmouth, and they can give you their perspectives as well.
Absolutely. So I think we have a question coming in. Viewers want to know if we will be at Pride 2013. So I don't know if we'll be coming back up to campus for that event, but certainly I imagine that we'll be joining DGala once we graduate and coming up and being involved in all of that organizing. And I think that it's really great. You'll see that Dartmouth students of all identities will connect back with campus within their own communities and then within the broader sense, and they'll be on campus for homecoming, and they'll be here for Green Key and Winter Carnival and for commencement and reunion period. So I'm sure that we'll be back here involved with a lot of those events in the future.
Yeah, no, definitely. I may not be able to make it up for Pride 2013, but I'm going to be in Boston, so it's easy enough to get up to Hanover at some point, and I'm sure I will.
But I do want to mention that during Pride Week, we actually do make an effort to bring back LGBT alumni who give specific speeches. I remember last year we had the first openly gay valedictorian at Dartmouth, I think, come and talk to us about his experiences. And obviously, when he was here at Dartmouth, which was, I think, in the 80s or 90s, he had a much different experience than we have necessarily today. But to hear the work that he and his friends did on campus at that time was really, really inspiring. And it's really great to see and reflect on how Dartmouth has changed over the last couple decades and become a much more welcoming place for LGBT students.
Yeah, completely. There was an alum that came back, I think, last year at some point, and there was just a general meeting in Collis between him and several other LGBT students. And when he came in, he was just kind of commenting about how he was shocked that people were just meeting in a room with open windows where people could see these people discussing, and just it's a testament to how much Dartmouth has changed, and that I think is even just within 10 years. Yeah. It's definitely, and it's continuing to evolve in a good direction.
So we have a question, are there any alumni mentoring sort of things for LGBT students? And we kind of just touched on that, but Kurt can talk about that a little more within outreach.
Yeah, no, definitely. Again, the Outreach Peer Mentoring Program offers undergraduate alumni mentoring component to our program where undergrads are paired up with alums based on academic interests, professional interests, personal interests, whatnot. And then they can coordinate with one another. DGala, which is the Dartmouth Gay and Lesbian Alumni Association, coordinates those mentor pairs. I'm the one that just forwards those interested in participating in that program onto them, and then they match people up from there.
It's really great to see the connections between students on campus and a lot of the graduates at Dartmouth who recognize that it's not always the easiest to come into the world, and be it the professional world or the postgraduate academic world, and kind of get your feet wet in the real world and figure out all those kinds of things. And it's great to have the resources of people who've been through it before and can really give you pointers on how to to figure out life in a new city, a new place that you're living.
Oh, completely. And I think you see across the board, Dartmouth alumni are very passionate about their school, as are the undergraduates. And you see a lot of these alumni mentoring programs pop up over the years. And I think it's just a testament to people wanting to give back to the school and to really help out people that they identify with. I mean, you look at Dartmouth, I mean, I'm excited for the new classes coming in, mostly because they're going to experience over the next 4 years what I've experienced in the last 4 years. And that's an exciting thing. So I think you see a lot of that with alumni giving back in this way.
And then kind of even just within the 4-year experience, you'll see within Outreach, the program that Kurt chairs, that a lot of the students who start out as mentees in the program will go on to become mentors for students as they become more comfortable themselves and recognize that they want to give back to students who are coming in who faced very similar issues and struggles and help build their confidence and really create a stronger LGBT community at Dartmouth.
Yeah, completely. I think just the other day, the other co-chair of Outreach had mentioned that we have about a 50% of mentees become a mentor later on, which I think is a testament to what the program does for students in that situation. And then once they have the skills to give that back to someone else, that's a really great thing.
Absolutely, definitely. So we just wanted to thank everyone for tuning into this LGBTQ chat. My name's Ethan, and this is Kurt, and we've really enjoyed talking to you about everything. And hopefully, if you have any other questions, you can reach out to anyone at the admissions office, and we can try and answer them for you over the next couple of weeks. And we look forward to seeing you at Dimensions, which is April 19th through 21st. And we're hoping that some of you stick around for the rest of Chatapalooza throughout the day. We're going to have a lot more chats for you, a lot more students and interesting people for you to meet. And lots of chances to ask questions and get answers to anything that you've been dying to find out about Dartmouth. So thank you very much. Congratulations on being admitted to Dartmouth. We're really looking forward to meeting a lot of you coming up, whether it's at Dimensions or any other April hosting events. And thanks for tuning in. And have a great Saturday.
Come find us at Dimensions.